What's up YouTube? This is Swide from Reddit Troopers, and I want to bring you guys a video today about the new jump spell mechanics, and particularly about the move from the pre-update jump spell to the post-update jump spell, and what changed, what you can alter in your attacks to exploit the new jump spell mechanics, basically. I am going to give you guys right now a kind of like a too long, don't listen version of this video because it's going to be a little longer than usual. I'm going to go into some kind of advanced game mechanic theory, maybe. I'm not really sure what to call it, but I'm going to be talking about some stuff that I imagine some of you don't really care about, the methods by which I was discovering some of what I'm going to tell you right here. So if you don't want to listen to that, that's fine. Let me give you about a minute just breakdown of what you would hear throughout the whole of this video. Number one, the new jump spell has a wider area of effect. The diameter is the exact same, but the area of effect where your units can see the jump spell and alter their routes to whatever they're targeting, has changed. It is now larger. It's possible for you to now jump, whereas it was traditionally only possible for you to jump a walled off section like this from all directions by placing a jump over it, so a 5 space, 2 walls on either side and 3 in the middle. 3 spaces in the middle, a 5 space area with the jump spell. Now you can jump in the same manner a 6 space area, so something like this over here. Additionally, you can also, by placing your jump spell perfectly, jump a 7 space area, believe it or not. And I even think you can jump an 8 space area now. I've only seen it done once, could be a fluke. But I'm going to talk a little bit about later in this video why I don't think that's the case and why I think the new jump spell is actually going to allow you to jump 7 and potentially 8 space areas if you place them perfectly. The moral of the story is that the new jump spell mechanics allow you to be more aggressive. You don't have to be so conservative and jump a very centralized jump spell on just a junction anymore. You can get crazy and jump into a lot more areas, maybe even save some bombers. Traditionally, I don't like to use a jump spell if I can use some bombers first and then get a lot more out of my jump spell later. But with the new jump spell mechanics, I think you can potentially save some troop space because it's actually a lot bigger than people realize. That's the short version. Let me get into a bit, if I may, about how I'm coming to this conclusion, first of all. I'm going to show this replay. This is a pre-update replay, and for me, a pre-Reddit Troopers update, or replay, where I'm in Legends. And this is a surgical attack. Not a great base, but you'll see here, I drop my golems and create my funnel like usual. And I'm going to drop a jump spell here that is not actually going to work. So there it is. Actually, I'll play a little longer. You can see nobody is retargeting toward it. This defense went down, so this golem, instead of going through the jump spell, actually bounces over here because they didn't see it. Despite there being roughly 1 wall space outside the other wall, they didn't seem to see this jump spell. And this was happening constantly, and it's one of the reasons Super Spell changed the mechanics of the jump spell, because it certainly looks like they ought to go in there, use that, and bounce around, do what they need to do. But they just weren't. I was noticing very frequently that something like this would happen, and then at the same time, I would do kind of a similar thing on a different attack, and they would take the jump spell. And I thought that was due to some kind of inconsistency or some type of randomizing algorithm, Supercell included within the jump spell mechanics themselves, but I realized that wasn't actually the case. It turned out that quite often, attacks, in pretty much every single time, attacks that were done on the southern half of the base, where a jump spell occurred like this and the units didn't take it, so right on the edge of where maybe they should see it or not, the units didn't go in, as opposed to when the attack was done on the upper half of the base, they would take that kind of jump spell, a jump spell that's just barely seems to be over the wall. They would take it regardless, and I couldn't figure out why that was. Let me show another replay here, actually, to just kind of elucidate that. This is another, it's a similar attack. I've actually showed this replay on the channel before, but it was one that I had lying around and that was going to be useful for this purpose, so I'm reusing it. Again, these are both pre-update videos, so not much here you can use maybe strategy-wise, but just for the jump spell. Another surgical attack. I drop my golems, drop my wizards to break some funnels, and then my queen. And you can see that jump spell there. It's a little bit different because this is actually a 6-space area. And traditionally, you wouldn't really be able to jump that. You could if you placed it perfectly, but you saw like that. Sometimes you drop it and they should go in and they don't seem to. But here, there seems to be even less space, and they're using it just fine. They're going to go in and they're actually going to jump all the way into this section, which is very curious. The trouble is, I just couldn't figure out why this was. But as it turns out, what I've figured out after watching so many replays is that pre-update, and this is vaguely true for post-update as well, but I'll get into that a little later, jump spells that were that approach a wall that's facing northwest or northeast. So see how these walls, the direction they're facing is one of those, as opposed to a wall down here which faces this way, or if you can see maybe a wall like this straight over here faces this way. Walls that faced northern directions actually extended the jump spell a little bit longer, it seemed like. The troops were able to take less of it and use it to gain more ground than they could if you came in from the bottom. So going back and watching my replays, there were a number of times where I missed a jump spell. I try to get greedy and I try to go 6 spaces on the bottom, and there seems to be enough on the outside, but they're just, my golems didn't take it and I had to adapt on the fly. Whereas opposed when I did the same thing from the north, it always worked. And that's because of these wall directions. Now, the reason for that, I think, actually comes down to the 2D versus 3D game theory. I don't really know if there's stuff, if there's videos on this or if people have been talking about this. I assume so. I'm not in on those conversations, so I wouldn't know. If you know, just drop a link or a comment in the video and let me know, because I think this is very interesting. Imagine this is your screen. Imagine this is Clash of Clans. Forgive my Microsoft Paint geometry, but this is what I'm able to do, I'm afraid. You are going to be A. You're here. This is you. You kind of like... Clash of Clans is essentially like a third-person, I guess, real-time strategy game. You're outside. You're looking into the game. You're looking kind of down at your village. Another way to think about that is if you're over here, if this is the front, you're looking kind of down at your village, right? So you're up, but kind of to the side. You're diagonal from it in some sense. What I was noticing with the jump spells is, let's take the box away for a moment. If you're imagining this is your jump spell diameter for a second, and when you place it, we'll pretend that these are walls. Again, forgive my drawings. You place it, and you hit just like a part, you click a wall, right? Let's say this is the part of a wall that you're able to click, so just kind of that top portion. You press it, you drop your jump spell, and you imagine that the jump spell is heading straight down, right? Just kind of straight down from where you placed it. So you're imagining, okay, I want to jump in this front side here. This is going to be the diameter I need to jump with my jump spell from there to there. So, you are going to assume that the top of the lines basically are the point at which you drop your jump spell is going to be the same at the bottom, and your jump spell, the green circle in this case, is going to extend beyond where that red line is. But the reality is that it's shifted. It's slightly different. So you think, okay, my jump spell is going to drop and it's going to be inside here, and I'll be able to use it to jump here, but it'll miss kind of like this area, right? What's really occurring here is your jump spell is actually heading straight down. It's not really going to the bottom, it's more going to the front, if that makes sense. There's a slight difference between where you think you're placing the jump spell and where it's actually being placed. I'm just going to call that difference C since I've been using letters. So there's a slight difference, and this in the pre-update jump spell is only about one wall width, one wall length, whatever you want to call it. It's not very large, but you saw like on that previous replay that I was showing, it's enough that when I drop the jump spell here and it goes down like this, or, you know, I think it's going like that. The reality is it's actually going slightly more to the front. And because of that, or I'm sorry, it's going more slightly backwards. And because of that, I'm actually missing part of the wall. The reality of the mechanics of the game is that because it's like trying to emulate a 3D environment, and it's still a 2D game, there are some slight differences between what you think you're doing and what's actually occurring in the mechanics of the jump spell. The difference being you are roughly one wall space off, and this is pre-update again, one wall space off of where you actually think you're supposed to be. Elite war players just generally account for this. So without really knowing it, on the bottom side of the base, people tend to give a little extra room. And on the top side of the base, they jump it and they're a little more aggressive. And I was watching, when I was looking for material for this video, I'm watching my replays and thinking, you know, how did I know that this was going to work? But it's kind of intuitive. If you've battled a million times, like a lot of war players, you know, you've really attacked thousands of times, you just kind of have an intuitive sense of these things. A normal player who just wars maybe once a week or so is going to drop this jump spell and say, what the hell? They should use this. The reality of it is that the jump spell is slightly further back than you realize, just because of the 2D versus 3D asymmetry is what I'll call it. The same thing kind of applies for just as far as an example goes. Back to this other replay. If you look at, say, a balloon, the same thing goes for minions as well. I'll use this balloon right here as an example. You see its shadow down here? This is where the unit actually is. The game developers are trying to give you a 3D characterization of this unit, right? So in order to do that, they have to put the actual unit is in a different spot than the GUI interface suggests. So you'd think, okay, like if this is shooting this balloon, but the reality is, you know, when you used to drop lightning spells, you drop them on the shadow because that's where they actually are. Lightning spells are kind of obsolete at this point with the poison spell, but that's kind of like a lesser known secret of Elite War Clans. Is the reality is that this shadow is where the unit actually lies. In this difference here is that same difference that I was talking about before. Things are just in a slightly different spot than you would think because of the way the game mechanics basically are. That's that C value. So when you're looking down at the game, again, something like this, there's a space here between kind of where you think you're placing something. If you click, it goes straight down to the game, as opposed to where it actually goes because of the 2D versus 3D thing. And again, that value I'm just going to call C. It's this difference between the two diameters of where your jump spell should have gone, where you saw, okay, yeah, I dropped it right here, and where it actually goes. It's slightly further back than you realize. The reason I think this is because looking at, sorry about that, looking at a replay like this, where the jump spell comes in from the top, these walls are not where they appear to be. In a similar manner to the shadow, they look to be in a different place than where they are. You see the picture of the wall, and they appear three-dimensional. So when you drop a jump spell, you assume that there's some kind of side portion to this wall, right? The reality is that there's not. This wall is a 2D depiction it's a 3D depiction of 2D code. So there's actually more room on this back side. This is where the jump spell actually is on that back side. On the front side, it simply is where it looks because this is the very bottom. But on the front side, in this case, the north-facing walls, because the wall itself isn't actually 3D, there's no bottom portion, it's not a block like this, the spell diameter is actually a lot wider than you think it is, which is a really, really rather interesting thing. It's not, what you see here is not all that the jump spell is. It actually extends kind of what would seem to be into the wall. And I think that's due to the point of view of the game in the way that Supercell has engaged with this 3D as opposed to 2D aspect of it. Again, this is all theoretical, but it's my explanation for what I continue to see in the game. Post-update, I started this video, started the kind of research, if you will, for this video prior to the update, and the first few battles I had in the update thought, oh, they fixed this problem, so I'm not going to have to make this video. Great, because it's kind of a pain in the ass. But as it turns out, they didn't. It's just lessened. The effect is lessened. I'll show this replay here, post-update from XCL, and it's actually one I've showed on the channel before for a different purpose. He's just going to do a queen walk on one side of the base, and he's going to bring his shatter in here. And he's going to hog the rest of the base. So, get that centered for you guys. Golems go down. He's going to bomb into this first layer. Wizzy's final break-in. And this queen is just going to wrap around the whole side of the base. So, don't have to worry about her. Bombers go in. They break that first wall. Lava Hound comes out. He gets witches down. King goes down. And then he drops this jump spell here. You'll see a few hogs come in behind him. But what I actually want to look at is, I'll zoom in here briefly. This jump spell is spanning a 6-space section of walls, a whole town hall's worth. And it spans on both sides. And the golems and all the skeletons went in, and you can see one has already come out the other side. And this is something that in the previous, pre-update Clash of Clans, you would possibly be able to do from this direction where he does it, just from a northern-facing wall, because there's actually more jump spell there. But post-update, you can actually do this basically from any direction. Here's another replay, and this is actually in a clan we faced, so this is not one of our attacks, this is their attack. But this section of wall here, as you can see, is 7 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Pre-update, that no jump spell is getting you through both sides of that. But post-update, jump spell has changed dramatically. There is a tiny sliver that I don't know if you can see right here where that jump spell has crossed the threshold of this wall. That tiny, tiny white sliver is going to be enough for these golems to basically get out of that first layer to take this jump spell into head in, which is insane. The new jump spell mechanics are such that you only, on the front end, you only have to basically barely touch the bottom of a southern-facing wall, and your golems and any of your other units are going to be able to use that. I tested it a number of times, and it always works like this. these golems, no secret, are going to get into here. No problem. The very interesting thing is that they also are going to move on from there and move into here. And that is not necessarily something, just to go back, it really doesn't look like there's any jump spell here, right? How did they use this tiny sliver up here and jump in here? That's the new jump spell. All it really has to do is potentially touch the edge of one of these walls, and you're going to be able to use it. On the front side, again, it has to be more. It actually has to be showing. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's just a tiny, tiny sliver right there at the bottom of that wall where the jump spell is, and they'll take it in. Pretty much, if it's any less than that, I've seen one that was kind of here, and they didn't take it. They started beating against a wall. So it has to be showing on the southern-facing walls. But the northern-facing walls, where it appears not to be showing at all, it actually is showing, which is what I was saying earlier. There's a slight difference between where you place the jump spell and where it looks to extend and where it actually extends, because this one, let's see if we can, there we go. This line here is slightly off-centered of where the actual jump spell is. So if it's here, the real jump spell goes somewhere like this, right? That does not extend into this compartment whatsoever. So the fact that a golem is able to jump here and then somehow use this tiny bit of jump and get in here just goes to show you that these northern-facing walls, there's no real back to them. This is the spot that you have to, as long as it's covering this front area, you're going to be able to jump it. And because of that, potentially, as long as you have a jump that's like this, you're potentially able to jump an 8-space thing, like this compartment, and move in here. Just because of how the viewpoint of the game is in that 2D versus 3D asymmetry. It's remarkable, the fact that that slight variation of how the jump spell is actually working in the game allows you essentially 2 extra spaces of jumping. Guys, the moral of the story of this video is that you need to be more aggressive with your jump spells now. They're super, super OP. I don't know why people are using earthquake spells. You can use 2 jump spells for that price and potentially jump 16 spaces. Just potentially. Again, this is just another way to show this. This jump spell extends like that, not technically behind this wall, but it really is behind this wall, because this wall exists only right here. There's no real back to it. So as long as you're getting it through, like, basically through one of these little top pegs, it's actually going to be enough to get your units in, which is going to allow you, as long as you're coming from the north, as long as you're coming from one of these northern sides of these walls, it's going to allow you to jump 8 spaces. Saw a raid a couple wars ago that I was trying to find, and I couldn't find it, and then lost the replays, and it's tragic, but you can jump 8 spaces. You heard it here first. The jump spell is incredibly overpowered now. I mean, you saw them jump a ridiculous section and then jump into another section there. So it's incredible, frankly. Anyway, guys, it's relatively confusing. I waffled over how I was going to explain this to you, what was the best way to make it clear and to get my point across. And I'm not sure the diagrams really did justice to what I think is actually the case. But basically what you're looking at is new jump is bigger as far as the area of effect is concerned. You don't have to give it the leeway you did before. On these walls that face south, basically, these ones, as long as it's getting just right on that bottom edge, you're going to be able to jump it. On the north side, as long as it's basically going through the center of the wall, you're going to be able to jump it as well. But like you can see here, how it's only barely on this corner, That's really going to allow you to be ultra aggressive with your jump spells and to jump compartments that are 8 spaces like this. Another thing that you can do, this is like a Town Hall 10 Dragon Flower. It's very popular right now. This is a 3-space compartment, but some of them have the walls out 1 extra space. You can jump this space right here diagonally now, which you couldn't really do before. A lot of people were kind of sketched out, but you can absolutely do that now. The potential uses of this, as opposed to, the Earthquake spell, which is kind of gaining traction, but is incredibly less efficient than this new jump spell, and its new mechanics are. The possibilities for this are endless. You can jump sections and open portions of the base with 1 jump spell that traditionally and previous base building would say you can't get to. But the reality is that you can now. So consider that when you're raiding. 6, 7, even 8 space jump spells, if you place them correctly, are going to get you into places. I'd suggest practicing on some farm bases so you can just get a sense again for what the jump spell is actually capable of. But once you do that, man, base building is going to completely change. So anyway, guys, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I imagine I was horribly unclear throughout this whole video, so I'll have some explaining to do a little bit more. But until next time, guys, this is Swide from Reddit Troopers. You guys have a good one.